remember is when you do your paper, you start, so you've got that 10 minutes reading time, which I am honestly saying to you, with accounting, it would freak me out. It would totally freak me out, because I don't know how to utilize reading time. But I've been thinking about it a lot, and I really think for accounting, your best option for reading time is to take the answer book, and you take the question paper and you check that the wordings are exactly the same. Ne? And by doing that, you can already get an idea of which question is the one that you're going to leave for last, and which question you feel like this is going to build. Because it's a psychological thing. You want to build your confidence. So you want to do something that you know you're going to at least get a little bit right. Okay? So that, without being said, means that you do not go into an exam without knowing your formats up and down. It is not a given that they're going to print you the formats like they always do. So we are so used to them when it's an income statement, they give us certain things. If it's a balance sheet, if it's a cash flow, we're so used to this. Ne? What would happen if instead of giving sales, cost of sales, gross profit, other income, all of that, they start giving you, they just write down a certain part and you have to start at the top. Ne? That's a stupid example because all of you know the income statement. But please guys, do not even start working out exercises if you can't say the cash flow from top to bottom. Then it doesn't help to start working out exercises, because the format is not going to come to you through a miracle. It's study work. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking. In your 10 minutes, now you go and you look. You compare the answer book and the question paper, and through that you can also identify. That means that when you get, like, especially to things like when you start getting that feeling of you are starting to get rushed, ne? Then you can, with confidence, read on your answer sheet instead of going back to your question paper. Ne? Like, comment on the dividend payout policy. Okay, let's go back, see the information. You know, because you know that sentence is identical to the sentence in question 3 here. Ne? What is it, 3.2? Comment on the dividend payout policy. Comment on the dividend payout policy. Ne? Explain why this is a responsible change in policy. Responsible change in policy. Okay, that is what you're going to check. Because it has happened in previous, not in the final, was it the final? No, it was in the prelim, that the answer sheet in the question paper was different. And then we were not allowed to mark according to the answer sheet. You had to mark according to the question paper. So whenever there's a difference, you always follow the instructions on the question paper. But that's more a problem for the Afrikaans papers with the translations. Okay, so I've talked enough about that, 10 minutes. I think that will take you 10 minutes. Ne? Right. And already, you know, and I've said this so many times, but I'm going to say it again because I want you to calm down. After the prelim, I think we are all sitting on the edge of our chairs. Ne? Remember when you go in there, you got this. You've been working on accounting since grade 10. Ne? Okay, 8 and 9. But since grade 10, you've been working for this day. This isn't something that comes as a surprise to you. And an asset is still an asset. And the expense is still an expense. And the income statement's format is always the same. The difficult things comes in with that little tweaks in calculations. And he cannot do too much with that. Because every question is 30, 40, 30. Meaning, super easy. Okay, what's super easy for them and for us is not necessarily the same, but this is straightforward things. Ne? So in business they would say this is your name this, how many factors, name 2 factors, it's those things. 40 is your average. So I would say the 30 is stuff you've learned in grade 10. The 40 is things you've learned in grade 11 and also a little bit grade 12. And the 30 is those little tweaks of calculations where you are reversing, where you are commenting. Okay? So if you do question 3, for instance, ne? And they say comment on the liquidity, ne? Then when it's liquidity already, you know, oh, it's that 6 ratios. I'm not allowed to use any other ratio than those 6. Then they give you 4, but they want you, so let's say they give you 4 of the liquidity ratios, but the question is such that 1 of the 4 should not be there. So then, the easy would be, there will always be 2 of them that's easy, that you can do. That is straightforward. You cannot miss it. And then between these 2 you need to check. And that becomes a little bit more difficult. But can you see, already don't let that 3rd one throw you that you need to choose. You already got 2 right. And you know, when you comment on ratios, you name the ratio, it's already a point. The trend, increase, decrease. And now they've made it even easier. You don't have to say from 1 to 2. You can just say 2, 2. So you name the ratio. Ne? Increase, decrease, 2. And you quote. And that's already 2 ticks. And everybody can do that. And I need you guys to let me quickly look at last year's question 3. Because that's the thing where I think you guys can get a lot of marks. But you lose a lot of marks because you don't know your parents. Okay? So if I look at this one, I'm going to look at this one, and I'm also going to look at the one in the last push. So the first thing you do when you get this, you ask yourself, number 1, is it one company with 2 years? Ne? So then I want to see if the company improved, deproved, whatever. Please don't use the word deproof, it's not a dictionary word. Okay. The second one is, do they give me 2 companies 1 year? Meaning now, a guy wants to invest. So he wants to see which company am I going to invest in. So now, I'm going to compare the 2 companies. And then, the one that they actually love a lot because it gives them the most options in questions they can ask is 2 companies, 2 years. Okay. So the first thing while you are reading, your reading time, you go see. So let's go see. If I look at this, and you will see it here with your information. If I look at this, this is 1 company. Where else can I see that it's only 1 company? It's right at the start. See? So I see. So get steps ready. So the first step is to identify this. And how do you identify this? Right at the start already. They will either give you the name or they will say, this guy has shares in both companies, or this guy. So you look for the names, you highlight them, you know we're working with 1 company. That's the company. Okay? Then you go look. When they say profitability, the word profitability immediately is the on ratios. You know what I mean with that. Okay, so let's just go through it again. If I say I put this stapler on the table, which one is on top, the stapler or the table? The stapler. So if they say calculate the gross profit on sales, which one is on top? The gross profit, sales at the bottom times 100. Okay, now they've got a new way of marking. So previously you would have said, okay, times 100, and the answer would be in percentage, and they were very, very focused on that percentage. Okay? Now, they don't look at the percentage. You get your bagel if you write times 100. Okay? Or if it's days times 365. You guys get me? Okay. So you don't need to know the units here at the end. It's safer not to write it, but to be sure that you have the times right. You get me? Okay. Now, if I look at profitability, the on ratios, let's quickly go look. What is the on ratios? If I look here, which ratios is on? So, on. They give me 3 on ratios. Markup is also an on ratio. But markup, you don't use that to see if the business profitability is better or worse. Because markup can't show you that. If I say my markup is 50% and next year my markup is 60%, you can't say the profitability is increasing. Where will you see the profitability is increasing? By looking at the gross profit, the operating, or the gross profit on sales, or the net profit on sales. Because you want to, changing your markup is just your strategy that changes. And so you want to, in the end, to see what's the result. So you never quote markup when they ask about the profitability. Okay, markup is just a method to get my profitability up. Okay, and what is my markup percentage? And remember, this is also a favorite in paper 2. Make sure that you know this ratio for paper 2. This is my gross profit on cost of sales. Okay, now can you see you've got 3 ratios that you can quote? So it means now you look at your mark allocation. So I see my mark allocation is 4, and can you see they only say quote, they don't say explain. So you literally gonna get your 2 marks by naming, increase, decrease, quoting. 2 marks. Now there's 3 I need to take out. 2. They say quote 2 that indicate that the company is managing its expenses well. Can you see the word expenses is already indicating that you're going to use this one, the operating expenses on sales. Can you see that? I mean, they already gave you the clue. So already you got 2 out of 4. Because why is it good that it goes down? Because this tells me what percentage of my sales is used to cover expenses. So the moment I start using less of my sales to cover expenses, the better my control is. Okay, so I've got 1. Now, let's quickly think. All the on ratios comes from my income statement. Does this thing have an income statement? I just want to show you the format. If I look at an income statement, so they are asking me about what's happening after, if my expenses is controlled well. So any ratio before expenses will not show me if my expenses is done well. So any ratio after that will show me. So can you see operating profit, net profit? So do they give me 1? Yeah, operating profit and net profit. Now I need to know which one shows an improvement. Both of them shows an improvement. So you have full marks there. And even if not, you have at least 2 because of the quote. Now can you see with the 30, 40, 30 that quoting the expenses ratio is already the easy. So actually, this question already got 50% easy. You guys get me? Okay. Now, dividend payout is most my DPS on EPS. And I need you guys to get in the habit that when you quote and comment on dividend payout, the percentage of this is the percentage dividends. 100 less that percentage gives me the percentage retained income. And you must get into the habit that you're always going to say, you work out, you use that percentage. So let's see the dividend payout policy. If I look at this, there it is. Now they don't use policy, they use the word rate. And why do they do that? They do that because they want to test that you know it's actually the same thing. It's just like when they use the word turnover, you know it's actually sales. They're just testing your knowledge. Can you see how subtle they are testing you? So now I go look. So what does this percentage mean? This percentage means last year, 86% of the earnings. What is earnings? It's your net profit. Now if you think about it, if I have my net profit and I subtract my tax, now I've got net profit after tax. That is going to be paid out in the form of dividends, and a part of that is going to be retained as retained income. Can you see net profit after tax is your earnings? Does that make sense to you? So now, if I say to you 86%, it means 86% of that net profit is paid out as dividends. Meaning 14% is retained. And you can't just show that. You have to show that also. Okay? You guys with me? Now, if I look at this year, 60% of the net profit after tax is dividends. Meaning now 40% is retained. So what's happening here? What's happening here? Can you see less dividends, more savings? Because retained income is your savings. Why would they save more? Exactly. Future expansion. If it was the other way around, and your retained income went down and your dividends went up, what would your reason be? You want your shareholders to be happy. Can you see that this is the very shallow answer? The deeper answer of, oh, but now it's, even though the percentage is lower, the dividend payout is more, you know, that is for your guys who wants 80-90. Okay? And yes, you also want 80-90, but before you want 80-90, you want 30% to pass. After you get your 30, you want 40. After you get 40, you want 50. You don't start with the difficult things. You don't start with that. Where do you start to climb a mountain? At the bottom. And again, I say to you, do not think that the difficult things are going to give you more marks. It won't. It won't. Okay, let me just show you the memo. That I can show you what I'm saying is not nonsense. Can you see there? Financial indicator gets 1 mark. That was the previous one, the on ratios. The figures and trend 1 mark for 2 of them. Look, operating expenses, there you already got 2. You already got 2. Everybody in this class has got 4. Do not mention mark. Okay? So let's say you did mention markup, then it means you got 2 out of 4. You already got 2. Remember, we work in 15s. 15%, 15 marks gives you 10%. 30 marks gives you 20%. 45 marks gives you 30%. So you need 45 ticks. Then you passed. Okay? So start working to 45 marks, and then you know every 15 marks is pushing you 10% up, 10% up, 10%. Okay. So now look at the dividend payout policy. What did they say? It decreased from 86 to 60. Can you see the 86 is in brackets? It means you don't need to mention it. You can just say it decreased to 60%. Okay? There's already one tick because everybody got that right. And then what are you going to say? It decreased because now what's happening? My savings are going up. Funds have been retained for future expansion. 2 marks. Okay? Don't try and sound like you are already an auditor. You're not. You're in grade 12. Next one. Let's look at this one. They say earnings and returns. So what ratios is that? Earnings is your EPS. Right? What is returns? ROSI. Please don't think ROTCE. ROTCE has got nothing to do here. ROTCE has got to do with the loan. Okay? ROSI. Return on shareholders' equity. Okay. Why? Because I want to compare that to other investments. Why? Because I am a shareholder or I am a potential shareholder. What's the other word for a shareholder? An investor. Ne? So I want to see, is my money making me money? I put money in this company, is it making me money? So now they say, explain whether the shareholders should be satisfied or not with, and look at this, with the earnings per share. They tell you EPS. You don't even have to think about it. So now, and average shareholders' equity, they tell you ROSI. Can you see? Of the company, quote, 2 indicators. So they already told you. You have to go use the EPS. What happened? The EPS increased to 112 cents. Don't do percentages and weird stuff. Just say it increased to that. The return on shareholders' equity increased to 20%. And then, when you want to be clever, what will you compare that 20% to? The interest on fixed deposit. Can you see? Wow. Should they be happy? Of course, they're making 12.5% more. Ne? Okay, so let's see how they marked it. The EPS increased to 112 cents to 1 mark. Okay? So now this one they wanted, can you see I didn't answer it like this, so I'm going to lose 1 mark. But the return on average equity, 1 mark. They must be satisfied because it's greater than the fixed deposit. So the way I answered it, I would get 3 out of 4 because I didn't show that. Okay? So, you're not going to stress about how the memo is going to look like. Because then you go into stress mode. You get a pattern and you stick to your pattern. Yes. Under? The earnings equity. Yeah, it does. But they will always, when they talk about returns, yeah, but you can say if you want. Can I? Yeah. So the thing is, with this, when they talk about returns, they will always specify which ones. They will always say comment on the dividends per share, but usually dividends per share they will keep for the earnings and stuff like that. But yeah, it's actually EPS, DPS, ROSI. That's your returns. And that's the things the shareholder would be interested in. Okay, now let's read. Are you starting to see the pattern of how you must answer this? Okay, now let's go look at this one. Now they say financing strategies. Now if I talk financing, I'm talking about, you must tell me how long you want the videos, ne? If I must cut it after 30 minutes or 30, not longer. Let me rather cut it here, because now I'm going to talk.